Good evening and welcome back to We're Not Really Here, full-time at Wembley, and it was the semi-final for the FA Cup. Arsenal 2, Manchester City 0, not the result that we wanted, and that does end the defence of our FA Cup crown. A really difficult 90 minutes, and in the second half, for me, it kind of played out much like the first half. Joining me to get into it is Michael Brown and Paul Dickov. Michael, we'll begin with you. It did feel a bit like a carbon copy of us dominating a lot of the ball, yet Arsenal with the one chance, the ball over the top, which we spoke about, resulted in another goal, and City found themselves 2-0 down.
We asked for a reaction at half-time. I felt like the players delivered that. They were on the front foot. They were pushing this Arsenal side right back, dominating like we've never seen. You know, it's usual City. But ultimately, again, it comes down to, as we mentioned, at what point do you leave players, the counter-attacking ability of Arsenal and Aubameyang, and just that one long ball was obviously the sucker punch that Manchester City didn't need to happen. They continued with fantastic play, but ultimately then Arsenal were on such a high, and they've defended yet again for their lives. It was a wonderful defensive display, but like we're seeing for Manchester City against Southampton, it was similar, wasn't it? That they stood in, they all defended well. David Luiz, who we've criticised so much, I think it was 10 clearances, 4 interceptions, wow. and that just tells you that the defensive display, but ultimately Manchester City couldn't create those opportunities.
No, and it's, look, we're all disappointed. I think you've got to, it's quite easy to pick the bones out of it, but you've got to give Arsenal huge credit for how they set up. You know, they defended fantastically well. They were under huge amounts of pressure for the majority of the game, especially in the second half. And, you know, at times they were defending 5-4-1 in their 18-yard box, you know, and it was so difficult to break down. Big moments in the game. You know, I do believe at 1-0 was a penalty for Raheem Sterling. He's been through, Mustafi, I think it was, you know, he's slid in, but he's caught him before he's caught the ball in the back of his knee. VAR must have seen something in it, because they looked at it for so long. I don't blame John Moss. I usually do blame John Moss because I'm not his biggest fan for the decision, but once it goes to VAR and they've slowed it down and they've seen the pictures that we've seen, they have to give the penalty. I can't understand for the life of me why they've not given that. And then literally, you know, defining moments in games, 5 minutes later, Arsenal break and it's 2-0. But for me, if we get the penalty and we score it, we go on and win the game, no problem at all. And it's a decision again by VAR that was wrong.
That's happened in a few games, but what I kind of will get into the big chance in the second half. But this, what we're talking about, even since the restart, it's a conversation that has definitely come about, and we haven't dived into it. But there is this thing of City dominating teams, kind of having absolute control over the game, carving out kind of half chances, maybe not full chances, yet still come 90 minutes, we find ourselves 1-2-0 down. What is that? Because it seems to happen now too many times for us to go, that was just one of those games. It's been one of those games about 5 or 6, 7 times this season. Where do you think we have to look to improve to stop that from happening? Because it literally seems to be our Achilles heel, and the only thing that you can kind of say City kind of don't get quite right.
I just think defensively, I think it's a little bit of concentration. You know, because we're attacking, we have that much possession of the ball. I mean, we were always taught, we were playing growing up, but when you're on the ball, the first thing you should think of is defence. You know, especially as your defenders. And you know, I think young Eric, with his inexperience, because we've got that much possession, he's watching what's in front of him without realising that Aubameyang's always ready to go in there. So concentration levels, because we dominate every single game that we're in defensively. And then when we get the chances, maybe it sounds ridiculous to say because the amount of goals we score is just being a bit more clinical.
There was an interview where Sterling said just that, going, actually, we do create the chances, we just sometimes don't always take them. And going back to that goal, Michael, for you were saying, because Eric was very much watching in front of him, and Aubameyang was in his line of view, it wasn't behind him, and he just forgot about him, and that was as simple as that.
If you watch the clip from the right-hand side, Kyle Walker had gone tight, and then it looked like the ball was released, and Eric had came across, and he could see Aubameyang there. So for me, I'm thinking, I can just deal with Aubameyang. If that ball's going to go over my head, I can block him. I can get my arm between me and him, so it's not a race. I need to be that side, or at least I can put my hand on him so he can't do that. But if you see, just before it happens, the ball goes over the top, he checks to his left-hand side to see what's around him, is there any other danger to the side. And once he's done that, the ball's gone. He's already too late. So he has to think, I'm okay, I'm doing my job. I'm just going to look after Aubameyang on my right side. I've got Laporte, I've got Mendy. They'll have to do their job. And ultimately, that's with experience. And just get your hand on him, make sure you can't go the other way. And once he's gone, you're not going to be able to recover with Aubameyang.
Yeah, I think he's just, as soon as the ball gets laid back for the up, back and through for Aubameyang to go, as soon as that goes back, I think Eric's just got to cover space side.
Yeah.
And if anything, be a deterrent for the ball going in there in the first place. And then when the ball does go in there, at least you know you've got half a yard on Aubameyang, whereas he's up level, and as Michael says there, he's watching what's happening in front of him without really worrying what's happening behind him. But we don't want to be too overcritical of him, because he's been fantastic since he came in, and look, we're all a bit disappointed, but I always try and take positives out of it. Now we can concentrate on the biggie at Real Madrid going forward.
Well, that is what's left to play for now. City, of course, we've secured second place in the Premier League. Unfortunately, the FA Cup is out of our hands. Champions League still to play for. What's your approach though now, Jensen? And Michael, I'll begin with you, because we've got Watford and Norwich rest for the rest of the season. Watford is next Tuesday, then Norwich, and then it's Champions League. Do you now rest your kind of best 11 to 13, 14 players, or do you say no, we keep going in the Premier League and build up momentum again?
I think it's about the momentum, it's about minutes, but I think they'll be getting some patterns in place for Real Madrid. Wherever they are, you don't always see them with Pep Guardiola. He will be working on them daily, and we might see little snippets, 2s and 3s. You mentioned earlier, didn't you, that they play within groups, so we might see that start to develop on the games leading up. It'll now give everybody the opportunity and rest. So I think it's important that rests in place. I think it was going to be a little bit unfair if Manchester City got to an FA Cup final, Real Madrid having more rest. Now that there's still more rest there, but it's ultimately nowhere near that you can complain about. So it's just move on from it, accept the amount of possession, the amount of good football that City did. And as Paul said, should have been a penalty, would have changed the whole outlook of the game. So you can't be just too disappointed. Pep Guardiola will say, wonderful performance second half, we controlled it, it was great little link play, but defensively we've just got to stop leaking these goals, unfortunately.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, well, two men who've been at Wembley for us throughout the show has been Cal Walker with Shaun Wright-Phillips. Here's what they had to say at full time.
Yes, Cal, disappointing result here at Wembley, 2-0 Arsenal. Shaun, what did you make of the game?
I thought Arsenal defended well. City, as we knew, would dominate the whole game, but every chance we got seemed to have got blocked, really.
Must be frustrating as a player when you do dominate in possession, you're creating chance after chance, you're relentless in attack, and the ball just doesn't find the back of the net. How will these boys be feeling in the dressing room?
No doubt they'll be gutted. It's going to hurt, but they've got a game coming up in a few days, and they still got a lot to play for, so they have to pick themselves up and move on, really.
They definitely do. Champions League as well as finishing the Premier League. They've got a lot to play for towards the end of this season, but for me, if they play that way against Real Madrid, we've still got a massive hurdle to go in them.
Yeah, we do have a massive hurdle, but we kept the ball, and I don't see Real Madrid putting 10 players packed in a box, so there'll be a lot more spaces for our team to manoeuvre.
It would have been incredible for us to do this here at Wembley, to progress on to the final of the FA Cup, but there's still a lot to play for in the Champions League. They have to remain positive for the end of the season, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. No doubt Pep will be telling them. Of course, they'll be disappointed, but like I said, they have to lift their heads up and push on to the next game against Watford and come out firing.
There we have it. We go again on Tuesday against Watford. Disappointing, as we've said. It feels a little bit flat here at Wembley. Obviously, there's no fans. All the media interviews are happening. We'll see who comes out for the post-match interview as well. And hopefully we'll be able to move on, dust ourselves off, and we go again. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Kyle. The only thing I can take from that is that they've had to put the jackets on. So actually, who's laughing now? We're in a nice warm studio. We're very comfortable. You enjoy your time outside. Soft.
Very soft.
We were talking there actually just while we were watching that, the point they made about the Real Madrid game. Now, I'm always fearful of this long ball over the top. But I don't think you were saying, Paul, we're not going to see the same type of team that we've seen with Arsenal, with the maybe 5 at the back and them having to sit.
There's no way Real Madrid with the players they've got will come here and play 5-4-1 and get everybody behind the ball, and they have to come here and win the game as well and score. So the game's going to be a lot more open, and we find in general when teams are expansive against us and want to go and score goals, that we've got more than enough quality to go and pick them off. So I think it'll be a completely different game. obviously, and Madrid, look, Spanish champions, they've got world-class players all the way through, fantastic history in the Champions League, so it's going to be difficult, but I still think that we've got the players and the way Pep will set up against them. And you know, winning in the Bernabeu was a huge marker, not just for Man City in Europe, but we went to the Bernabeu and we bossed it. We bossed the whole game, and Real Madrid will know that.
Going back to tonight's game, we're talking about chances, and really for me, there was only a couple that I could remember. You had the De Bruyne free kick, Sterling where he couldn't quite get it out of his feet or choose one or the other, the Laporte shot at the end, but we didn't really create the clear-cut chances we needed to try and get the goal. Granted, Arsenal defended well, Michael, but also you feel with the ability we have on there, we should be able to create one or two more.
You would have expected better clear-cut chances. Laporte from outside of the area, Kevin De Bruyne, he fizzed that ball across the front post, and David Silva just had a touch with his side foot to the side of the goal. You'd expect him just to flick. You expect so much from him, don't you? Just to sort of flick it as it goes when the ball's fizzed in. So a bit more creativity right in the final third, a bit of magic by somebody, but there was blocks all over in front of them. They managed to get all the bodies back, but that's what it creates when you concede goals. And we were just discussing that, the record of Manchester City away from home when they concede and they're losing 1-0 at half time, they struggle to come back from games, and that's the critical point. But we've got to say, what a game we've got to look forward to. I want to put those Premier League games away. I want to bring on Real Madrid, and I want to see Manchester City play with the same tempo, the same style as we've seen in so many games. And even tonight we've seen that flashes. It's there, but ultimately it's just going to have to be a little bit tighter at the defence. And we keep saying that you can't give these opportunities to the top teams or you will be punished.
There's nothing in as well, and like I can be a worrier, so tell me if I am, but there's nothing in the fact that this isn't the first time as well we've kind of struggled to create those clear-cut chances when they put 10 men behind the ball, and I know that's a tough proposition to come up against, but do you think maybe we could look to improve slightly in that area if we can, Paul?
The one thing with Pep and what he talks about is improving all the time, so he'll know that. He'll know that it's happened many a time this season, but where teams have done that and come away with the result, and they'll be working hard to get it right. But there's also been times, and look, this is my blue tinted glasses on again, where teams have came and put 10 men behind the ball, defended 4-5-1, and we've managed to cut through them. Sometimes you need that little bit of luck, whether it be the penalty shout, whether it be the David Silva little flick. You need that to go your way. So I'm not too worried about it, because as much as it has happened once too often this season, there are plenty of times and plenty of games this season and the seasons previous where teams have done that and we've managed to carve them open and batter them.
There was one change, gents, towards the end that kind of had us, well, had definitely had me scratching my head, was where he subbed David for Fernandinho. Now, you'd think that you'd be bringing on a more attacking player for that. You have Bernardo on the bench. What do you think the thinking was behind that, Michael?
I think I'll let you ask Pep that one.
Can we get a live feed
you
to
actually question? We can't question Pep Guardiola.
No,
I keep telling you that. You wonder what was going on. I know your point. You're sort of saying, listen, you're just trying to create something, trying to get Fernandinho in the box with all the crosses going in.
Yeah.
You're possibly thinking if anybody could time his run and get his head on the ball, Fernandinho's another option in those areas. Kevin De Bruyne, as you said, 15 crosses.
Wow.
And that's how they've tried to unlock it. They've tried to cross it. Manchester City tried everything this evening. It just wasn't to be. It comes down to conceding the goals. Yeah. Ultimately, it changes the whole outlook. It gives the other team a lift, and it's just that bit of tightness. But listen, we've just got to not be too critical. I think the players can't be too disappointed, and we've seen some fantastic moves.
Of course.
And now it's just all guns, everything ready. Get these games out of the way and get the build-up started for the game we've all wanted, really, and that's Real Madrid.
I know we're saying about getting the games out of the way, but I think after that defeat today and the disappointment for all, Pep will want to win these next two games going into the Madrid game even more now. The last thing we want is maybe a little bit of doom and gloom by not getting results against Watford and then Norwich. Then people are saying you're going to a Champions League game against Real Madrid after not winning in 3 games. So whatever game they play in, whenever since Pep's been at the club, they want to win every single game, and the next one's the most important one. And he will be telling the players not to think too far ahead and think about Watford and Norwich coming up, but let's go and beat Watford, let's go and beat Norwich and go into the Real Madrid game in the best shape we can.
I feel like you might have already answered this, Paul, because I was going to ask, with those 2 games, do you think there would be a little bit of room to maybe see some players that we've not seen too much of this season, and really that's the kind of youth players?
I don't think so.
No.
I think there's the squad, the size of it. You might see 1 or 2 like appearances, but generally there'll be minutes needed. They'll be still getting up to speed. There's been obviously a lot of games in quick succession.
Of course.
But you'll need to get those players right across the board to his highest level with amount of minutes played, ready if needed for that game. It's such a huge game. So you might see 20 minutes here or there. You might shock me. You might see 1 player, but it's about the longevity of the players, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Kevin De Bruyne, again, was the driving force, you know, throughout the whole 90 minutes. He was one player that always seems to give it his all and kind of absolutely attack the team with everything he can. Do you think that he'll take it upon himself as well now to really grab the team, you know, and take on that role of almost a captain and say, look, we put this right over the next 2 games?
Absolutely. I thought he was outstanding again tonight. You know, he's still on course for to break Thierry Henry's record, which I'm pretty sure he will with the 2 games coming up. And for me, you know, I've said it all the time, I don't think he's just the best midfielder in the Premier League or in Europe. I think he's the best player in the world at the minute.
Yeah.
In that position, because he just seems to get better and better all the time. And you know, people look at Kevin De Bruyne and they talk about his assists and his record and the goals he scored, his free kicks, his set pieces. But he works and drives that team on all the time.
Gentlemen, we do have the big game of Madrid that we keep on coming back to, and before that, the 2 Premier League games. So between now and then, if you're kind of down there, what is it that you're doing in the training ground, and what are you saying to them as we kind of approach this? You know, as you say, it kind of makes or breaks the season to a degree.
Well, I don't think he'll be saying much different, really. He'll be assessing that game. He'll have gone in afterwards and told them where the mistakes were made. Where we could do better, where we need to improve. We start again on the training ground, get ready for the game, prep as normal. He doesn't change his mentality, but I do believe he's already been building towards the Real Madrid game. I believe he's really set that as a focal point. This was also another big game because he wanted to deliver a trophy.
I think since lockdown started and as soon as we came back in, it was Real Madrid that the planning was for. Yes, the FA Cup was important, but I think the games, the training and everything leading up to it from the very start when we came back into it, it was all geared down to the Real Madrid game.
On tonight as well, I just thought this, and it might be nothing. Was just something in, do you think, there being no fans in the stadium? Because, I mean, it felt, you know, if you'd argue, if half of Wembley was filled with City fans, the way that we dominated, do you think that could have had an effect on the Arsenal defence? And the fact that it was quiet and still, and, you know, they could kind of each just calm themselves, relaxing into the game almost with all that pressure. Do you think that helped, Michael, or not?
I think when you're attacking and you hear the roary supporters, there's nothing better, as Paul will tell you, or any footballer, when you're playing in a stadium like this, it's an amazing feeling when you're on the attack. But when we're talking about a Wembley stadium, it'll be half and half with Arsenal already having a lead. Their supporters won't believe they're actually beating Manchester City by 2 goals. So I think it'll have been a bit similar. But we are all missing the supporters, and hopefully we can get them back soon.
Definitely. OK, well, let's hear what Pep Guardiola had to say at full time.
Pep, a frustrating evening. What's your verdict on your team's performance out there?
Well, we didn't make a good performance. We were not ready enough in semi-finals against teams in the level. If you don't play 90 minutes in a good performance, this kind of things happen.
You talk about not being ready enough. Why do you think that was?
No, we didn't play good.
Okay. Why do you think that was then?
Human beings, sometimes we don't play good. The opponent play good, and sometimes it happens.
You had plenty of chances again this evening, as we've seen in the likes of the games against Southampton and Chelsea. Is it games like this where perhaps you miss the clinical edge of Sergio?
Look, the only regret is that we didn't play the first half, or we played the second half. And after you can lose, but we didn't play the first half, but we played the second one. And that's why you lost.
What did you say to the players at half-time?
That we have to change a little bit. We changed a little bit the setup, but we could not do it.
A couple of individual errors again as well. How frustrating is it when your players are making these kind of mistakes? You've spoken about them a lot this season.
Which mistakes?
Just the mistakes leading up to goals.
It's happened, it's football. So, but mistakes in front of the goal, when you meet the chances, it's part. But today was not that the reason why we didn't win. So we didn't play good in the first half, and in these knockout games you don't have time against good teams.
What have you said to the players at full time? Because of course you've got to still lift them for the
I
remaining
answer
games.
you. I said we have time, we can do it. So we change something, and that okay. So change the mentality, be more aggressive, and try to to go forward. And we did it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pep.
Thank you.
That was Pep Guardiola speaking at full time at Wembley Stadium. Arsenal 2, Manchester City 0. Quite an honest assessment there, and just saying that tonight we weren't good enough, which I think is kind of the sentiments shared here. But also, like we were saying, you've got to be positive and think we've not lost everything yet, Paul.
Absolutely. I think, look, he summed the whole match up in his last couple of sentences there, and he said, cut out the silly mistakes and put your chances away.
Yeah.
And literally, I don't think there's much else you can say about that. He's obviously disappointed because the FA Cup, he said many a times, means a lot to him. It means a lot to the club, and to miss out in the third final in 3 years, possibly win it for the third time in 3 years, is going to be disappointing for everybody. But it's gone now. You've got to move on.
There was in his pre-match comments, Pep was talking about, that now every game is a final, and that is a great test for us going into a big Champions League quarter-final with Real Madrid. Will that have knocked City, do you think, slightly? Is there a fear that it could go in and say, well, that was the first test and we didn't quite rise to the challenge?
I don't think so. I think these players set their own standards. They have their own, beliefs, what they want, how they want to deliver games. They'll be disappointed. The players will think we just didn't do enough. And like he said, he was right. First half, there was too many opportunities for Arsenal. They weren't as sharp, weren't as aggressive. And we said exactly the same thing. It just needs to be quicker, it needs to be higher up the pitch. They did that second half, but obviously there was one breakaway that Arsenal got, and Aubameyang put the ball away, and then they just couldn't break down the Arsenal side. So he was quite honest with his reflection of it. He said, now we've got time to work, time to be aggressive, time to move on. We know what he said. We are building for that game, and I can keep saying, however, we've got games coming up. He'll want performances, he'll want results for sure. That's what he demands every single day. But he was pushed slightly, wasn't he, there, Pep, saying about mistakes. And what's great with Pep Guardiola, he doesn't really come out and say about the individuals if he feels like someone's wrong. He just says, as a team, we've made mistakes, but we need to be a little bit better, a bit more aggressive.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. As we say, still lots to play for. 2 games left in the Premier League and the quarter-final against Real Madrid, which takes place here at the Etihad. A slightly more positive note to finish on. It is about that man who we all love and adore, who we don't want to go, David Silva. He's just 3 appearances away from entering the top 10 appearances of all time, and there are 3 big games on the way, so hopefully he can do just that. Thank you so much for your company tonight, gentlemen. Thank you, Michael Brown. Thank you, Paul Dickov. And thank you, of course, to Kyle Walker and Shaun Wright-Phillips, who had us covered down in Wembley. Most importantly, thank you to you all for watching. We are back on Tuesday night. Please do join us. We'll be with you before the game, half-time and full-time, as we are every match. Until then, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll put it right come Tuesday.